I love a good annual literary tradition, and there is just no more comforting tradition than Jane Austen July. Hello friends and welcome to my channel. My name is Haley and I am a Christian wife, homeschooling mother of 3, out to redeem my very own literary education, which means that I am encountering classics for the very first time and I am loving it. Now last year I picked a female author of the year and a male author of the year, and my female author of the year was none other than Jane Austen herself. I completely dove headfirst into the world of Jane Austen and read all 6 of her main novels in 1 year, and it was a fun ride, and I did a full video about that I will leave in the description box below. But through that I discovered Jane Austen July and participated for the very first time last year, and it is just a staple in my year from henceforth, and I'm really excited to participate in my second year of Jane Austen July. I will be sure to leave links in the description box below for the information from the hosts and some of their Jane Austen July announcement videos so that you can watch them and participate as well. But I'm going to share with you all some of the books that I plan on reading for the Jane Austen July challenge. Now, I am pausing all of my other reading this month to solely focus on Jane Austen July, so that's all my TBR is going to be this month. So I'm really excited to just dive right in. The first challenge is to read one of Jane Austen's main 6 novels, and the one that the hosts have announced for the read-along is Emma. Now, this was actually the last Jane Austen book that I read last year. I read it in December and wrapped it up then. It was also my least favorite Jane Austen. That's not to say I didn't like it, because I still did, but I feel like I just read it and it was also my least favorite. However, I'm a rule follower and I think I want to give Emma another chance. So what I'm going to do this time is listen to it on audiobook and focus my reading time on some of these other books. So we're gonna give Emma another try. I think now knowing how the story ends and how Emma changes as a character may actually put this in a more positive light for me. So we're gonna give it another go. The next challenge is to read one of Jane Austen's works that is not one of her 6 main novels. And this is the only thing that I did not get to last year when Jane Austen was my female author of the year. So I'm excited to really focus on that this year. I have the Everyman's Library edition of Sanditon and Other Stories, and this edition includes Sanditon, the Watsons, Lady Susan, her juvenilia, some of her verses, some of her notes, some of her prayers. There is so much in this one volume, and I think this is going to be my main reading focus for the month because I really want to read all of this. Do I think it's going to happen? No. So what I'm going to say for the challenge is that I want to read Lady Susan and her prayers. Those are my 2 main focuses. Everyone has told me that I will love Lady Susan and laugh out loud at that story. So those are my priorities for this, but I really want to read all of them this month. So we'll see. The next challenge is to read a nonfiction about Jane Austen or about the time period, her life. Last year, I read Jane Austen at Home by Lucy Worsley and loved that biography. I highly recommend it. It was so fascinating that I actually included something from Jane Austen's personal life into our homeschool. She started her mornings playing the pianoforte, and so now my children start their mornings with music and piano when they wake up. I just thought that was a beautiful, creative way to slowly wake up the mind in the morning before going into schoolwork. So thank you, Jane Austen and Lucy Worsley, for that. But this year, I am reading the Jane Austen Diet by Brian Kozlowski. And I'm very excited for this one because I've already started it, and it's so good because it's about so much more than food and diet culture. It's more about Jane Austen's idea of a full picture of health, and it's not necessarily about size and numbers, but it's a little bit more about a vitality and just a wholeness of life. There was something he's mentioned in there that I've read so far about Jane Fairfax being a healthy medium. that's what I'm striving for. But health was a lot more than just food. It was about life. It was about moderation, enjoying things, but in the right way, at the right time. And a Jane Austen heroine, there are many different ways she can look, she can act, but Jane Austen's overall idea of health was a lot more about just a richness of life. And I love that. I think that's an incredibly healthy perspective to take when it comes to health, because I'm kind of on a health journey. I want to lose a little bit of weight. I want to get in shape. But this book has been a great way to remind me that health is so much more than just that. So I'm loving it so far, and I cannot wait to review it for you all here. The next challenge is to read a retelling of Jane Austen's works or read a historical fiction book that is set in Jane Austen's time. I'm going to read a retelling, and last year my favorite Jane Austen I found is other than Pride and Prejudice, because I don't compare Pride and Prejudice to the rest of Jane Austen's works, was Mansfield Park. Surprisingly, a lot of people hate that one, but I just really loved that one and connected with Fanny, the heroine. So I wanted to read a Mansfield Park retelling. And let me tell y'all, that's really hard to find because it's probably one of her least popular works. There's not that many out there, and I had a hard time finding one, but I did. And it is a Amish retelling of Mansfield Park called Mount Hope by Sarah Price. Sarah Price has written Amish retellings of all of Jane Austen's works. So if you're into Amish fiction, which I know is huge in the Christian reading and booktube sphere, then you might want to give one of those a try. Now, I have never read Amish fiction, but I am a Christian booktuber, so I do like those kinds of stories. However, I've just always been scared to try Amish fiction because I thought it might be too cheesy. But I'm giving it a go because this is one of the only Mansfield Park retellings that I've found, and I've started it. I've read the prologue, and I am very impressed with the accuracy of the retelling. When I read a retelling, I want it to be a retelling that basically follows the same story in a different way. And so far, Sarah Price has done a wonderful job, and it kind of really makes me want to read all of these Amish Jane Austen retellings. So that might just happen. But if you're looking for another recommendation, last year for this challenge, I read The Other Bennet Sister by Janice Hadlow, and this is one of my favorite books of all time written by a modern author. Period. This was everything I wanted in a Mary Bennet story. So at the beginning of this book, you follow part of the Pride and Prejudice story through Mary Bennet's perspective. You get to see what she was feeling and thinking during that really embarrassing piano scene at the Netherfield Ball. And then you also get to see what she thought about Mr. Collins and what did she think when he came on the scene looking for a wife. You get to find out what happened with Mr. Collins and Charlotte Lucas. And then it goes into just her own story. And I thought Jane Austen and I thought Janice Hadlow did an excellent job of keeping the spirit of Jane Austen in her characters while still creating a story all of its own. And also, if you love poetry, particularly William Wordsworth, then this book has a lot of that in it as well. It's very long, but I flew through it. I can't wait to reread it, and I almost considered rereading it for Jane Austen July, but I want to reread it after the next time I reread Pride and Prejudice, and that's going to be a new tradition for me because it was that good. So if you've ever wanted more for Mary Bennet, this is it. The next challenge is to read a contemporary of Jane Austen, so someone who was writing in Jane Austen's time. And I have been reading through the selected poems of Byron, Keats, and Shelley this year because I read Jane Austen last year and these were mentioned in her works. And so I'm just going to keep reading through them, and that's going to count for me. I love poetry, and I'm really interested in reading the poetry that she read and that she wrote about, and these definitely would have been it. But I've also heard several people recommend Frankenstein by Mary Shelley, who is Percy Shelley's, the poet's, wife, and that is one that I would also recommend if you've never read it. I read it for the first time last year. I was expecting a horror science fiction story about Frankenstein, and what I got instead was this really emotional, poetic question of right and wrong and morality and what's it mean to be alive and life. And I was not expecting that, but I loved it. I think I liked it better than what I would have thought about a science fiction or horror type Frankenstein. So that could be another option that you would consider for this particular prompt. The next challenge is to watch a direct screen retelling of one of Jane Austen's novels. And the one that the hosts have chose for this year is Emma, because we're reading Emma. And it is, I think, the most modern Emma is the film that they picked. I'm not sure what year that it was created, but I'll put a picture of it up here. And I am going to watch that one because I did not watch it last year after I read Emma. I watched the one that has, oh, what's her name? I don't know. She's in all those underworld vampire werewolf movies. I don't know. It's an older one, but it was really good. Anyway, I plan on watching the new Emma adaptation this year. And then the last challenge is, of course, to watch a modern retelling. I really don't know what I'm going to do for this one, to be honest, because I don't really know what all modern adaptations there are. I have watched a couple of other videos and people have recommended, like, I think Clueless is kind of a classic one. I don't think I ever watched Clueless growing up, and I don't really know how interested I am in watching it, but I might give it a try just because I don't know what else is going on. So if you have any recommendations for that prompt, for any modern adaptations of Jane Austen, please leave them in the comments for me below because I just have no clue. But that is my Jane Austen July TBR for the month. I'm really excited about it because I have missed Jane Austen. I particularly cannot wait to get to her other works. And I'm also really enjoying this Amish retelling of Mansfield Park so far, and the Jane Austen diet. So far my Jane Austen July is off to a great start. I can't wait to give Emma another try and hopefully get something a little bit different out of it this time. The second time around, that usually happens. So fingers crossed, it's going to be a great month. And I hope you all have a wonderful Jane Austen July. Please let me know in the comments what you're reading this month or what recommendations you have. And Lord willing, I will see y'all next time. Happy reading, friends, and happy Jane Austen July.